Welcome, spicy ladies. You do not become powerful by getting what you want. You become powerful by learning what you can walk away from. Most people live their lives chasing things they don't even question. Attention, approval, status, love that feels more like survival than peace. But Sigma females are wired differently. They've seen the cost of chasing the wrong desires, and they've made a different choice to walk away. Not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. Not because they don't feel, but because they've learned that not everything that glitters is worth bleeding for. This isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. Clarity is a quiet kind of power, and Sigma females have mastered it. They don't move based on what feels good in the moment. They've learned to pause, to detach, to say, "No, this isn't for me," even when it's dressed in everything they once thought they needed. Walking away takes courage, especially from things that once made you feel alive. But that's exactly what makes Sigma females different. They don't just grow, they outgrow. They don't just evolve, they shed. And in doing so, they build a life that isn't based on what the world says they should want, but on what actually feeds their soul. If you're someone who has felt the tug to pull back, to disconnect, to want less and become more, you might just be one of them. And trust me, that's not a weakness. That's the beginning of something rare. Let's dive in. Spicy ladies. Number 1, the desire to be chosen. Most people spend their whole lives waiting to be picked. Picked for love, for approval, for a promotion, for the spotlight. They shape themselves around what others might want just to feel worthy. But Sigma females broke out of that mindset a long time ago. They stopped waiting to be chosen because they realized something powerful. When you choose yourself first, everything changes. They don't need someone to point at them and say, "You're enough." They already know they are. Whether it's a romantic partner, a group of friends, or even family, they're not begging for inclusion. They're not sitting in emotional waiting rooms hoping someone sees their value. If it's not mutual, if it's not real, they're out. Simple. Picture a woman who's constantly overlooked in her own family. She's always been the one who gives the most and gets the least. The one who's never the favorite, never the one they brag about. But instead of shrinking or chasing approval, she builds her own lane. She creates her own peace, her own space, her own success without needing their stamp of validation. That's Sigma energy. In relationships, they won't stay just because someone finally picked them. If the love isn't deep, if the respect isn't real, if the connection doesn't feed their soul, they will walk. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Because chasing love is exhausting. Creating your own wholeness is freedom. Choosing yourself sends a message to the world. I am not waiting. I am already enough. That's why Sigma females are magnetic. It's not because they're loud or flashy. It's because they move like they don't need anything from anyone. And that kind of energy makes people stop and stare, even when she's not asking them to. Right now, if you are still watching, I hope this video can help you. Your comments motivate me so much, so I can make more videos which you like. So hit that subscribe button and leave me a message. Let's continue. Number 2, the desire to be understood by everyone. There was a time when she tried to explain herself, her silence, her standards, her decisions. She wanted people to understand that she wasn't cold, just protective. That her distance wasn't rejection, but clarity. But after enough blank stares and shallow replies, the Sigma female learned something powerful. Not everyone deserves access to her mind. The truth is, most people don't listen to understand. They listen to reply. Or worse, they listen just enough to judge. Trying to make someone see your heart when they're committed to misunderstanding you is a slow kind of death. Sigma females no longer play that game. They don't waste energy trying to unpack their depth for people who only operate on the surface. They've accepted that some people will never get it, and that's not their problem. Think about the woman who takes a step back from a loud group, not because she's shy, but because she values peace. People call her antisocial or weird. But what they don't see is that she's simply done explaining why she protects her energy. She's not rude, she's just real. And real often confuses people who live in performance. Sigma females no longer shrink themselves just to be digestible. If someone can't handle the full version of them, the silence, the boundaries, the intensity, they're free to leave. No explanations needed. Because once you stop needing to be understood by everyone, you make room for the ones who do get it, the ones who see you without needing a map. And that's the kind of connection that actually matters. The Sigma female has made peace with being misunderstood. She doesn't need the world to get her. She just needs to get herself, and that she already does. Number 3, the desire to be seen. Let's be honest, most people are addicted to being seen. They want applause. They want recognition. They want their every move noticed, praised, reposted, remembered. But Sigma females don't play that game. Not because they don't deserve the spotlight, but because they understand something most people don't. Being visible isn't the same as being valuable. Sigma females are not chasing attention. They've outgrown the need for external eyes to validate their internal worth. You won't find them broadcasting every win or begging for likes. Some of their most powerful moments happen behind closed doors, with no audience and no need for one. It's like the tree that grows in a quiet forest. It doesn't need a camera on it to know it's rising. It just grows. Roots deep, branches strong, in complete silence. That's how a Sigma female moves. They can walk away from the spotlight without feeling less. Why? Because they know who they are without the noise. They've done the inner work. They've cried in private, healed in silence, and rebuilt themselves piece by piece with no one clapping in the background. And that kind of strength doesn't need an audience. It becomes unshakable. Think of the woman who chose not to post her accomplishments, but quietly built a business, finished school, healed from a toxic past, or finally found peace in her own skin, all without telling the world. That's the energy of a Sigma female. She lives for the real thing, not the performance. When you stop needing to be seen, you start seeing everything more clearly. Who's real? What matters? Where your peace lives. And that's the kind of vision most people never reach because they're too busy performing. But not her, not the Sigma. She doesn't need the world to see her glow. She already knows she's on fire. Number 4, the desire for emotional comfort in exchange for truth. Most people will do anything to stay comfortable. They'll avoid hard conversations, sugarcoat their feelings, lie to themselves, and keep quiet just to keep the peace. But Sigma females are built different. They've learned that real growth never comes wrapped in comfort. It comes through discomfort, through honesty, through facing what others run from. Sigma females don't choose the easy way. They choose the true way, even if it hurts, even if it makes them the villain in someone else's story, even if it means sitting alone in silence after speaking a truth that shattered the illusion. They'll tell someone the relationship is no longer healthy, even if it breaks hearts. They'll call out fake loyalty, even if it causes tension in the room. They'll admit to their own mistakes, even when it stings their pride. Why? Because comfort built on lies is still a cage, and they refuse to live inside one. Imagine a woman in a long-term relationship where everything looks fine on the outside. Family loves him, friends cheer them on, but deep down she knows it's not real. She's losing herself just to maintain the illusion. The Sigma female in her finally says, "This isn't it." And she walks away not because she stopped caring, but because she started telling herself the truth. This kind of clarity comes with consequences. People will call her cold, harsh, difficult. But what they don't understand is that she's not running from emotions. She's just not selling her soul for temporary comfort. Truth is uncomfortable, yes, but lies are deadly. And Sigma females would rather bleed from truth than rot from comfort. That's the difference. That's what sets them apart. They're not afraid of tension. They're afraid of self-abandonment. And once you've chosen truth over comfort, you never see the world the same again. Number 5, spicy ladies. The desire for a soft landing in life. Sigma females don't daydream about an easy life. They don't sit around hoping everything just magically works out. The truth is they don't trust things that come too easily because they've learned that what's handed to you without effort usually comes with hidden strings. They've been through storms that no one saw, fought battles behind smiles, and walked away from comfort zones that others would have clung to out of fear. Ease has never shaped them. Pressure has. Discomfort has. Struggle has. A Sigma female doesn't ask the world to go easy on her. She asks for the strength to face it head on. She doesn't pray for shortcuts. She prays for clarity, for endurance, for wisdom. Because deep down she knows something most people try to avoid. Struggle teaches you what safety never could. Imagine a woman who could settle for the safe relationship, the stable job, the predictable life. It would be easy, comfortable, but it would kill her spirit. She knows she's built for more. So instead of staying where it's warm, she takes the risk. She chooses the unknown and embraces the burn of growth. That's not recklessness, that's alignment. Soft landings sound nice, but they rarely build depth. Sigma females understand that. They don't chase ease. They chase meaning. And if that means falling, failing, or rebuilding from nothing, they'll do it. Because every scar becomes proof that she didn't just exist. She lived. She's not here for a padded life. She's here for a real one. And real life comes with edges, pressure, and weight. But that's where her power lives. Not in the safety, but in the fire. The Sigma female doesn't fear the fall. She trusts herself to rise over and over again. That's why she doesn't need a soft landing. She is the landing. Number 6, the desire to be needed. Being needed can feel powerful. It can feel like love, like purpose, like you're important. But Sigma females have learned the hard way that being needed is not the same as being valued. People can need you and still never respect you. They can rely on you while slowly draining you. That's why Sigma females no longer build their worth around being useful to others. They don't cling to relationships where their role is to save, fix, or carry. They've walked away from people who only called when they were falling apart. They've left friendships where they were the constant therapist, but never the one asked, "Are you okay?" And they've ended romantic relationships where their strength was mistaken for obligation. It's not cold, it's clarity. They know the difference between being wanted and being used. And if someone only values them for what they do, not who they are, they'll leave quietly, completely. No guilt, no second chances. Imagine the woman who always shows up, the one everyone leans on. She listens, she solves, she gives. But the moment she needs something, silence. Suddenly she's too much, too emotional, too complicated. That's when the switch flips. That's when the Sigma steps in. She stops showing up. She stops overgiving. She stops being the emotional crutch. Not to punish, but to protect her peace. Because true connection isn't built on dependency. It's built on mutual respect. If you can't be loved without carrying someone's weight, you're not loved. You're used. Sigma females don't want to be needed anymore. They want to be seen, heard, understood, and they'll wait alone rather than stay where their worth depends on how much they give. They don't fear being alone. They fear being reduced. And once a Sigma female learns to stop feeding that need to be needed trap, she becomes unstoppable. Not because she has something to prove, but because she finally stopped proving anything at all. Number 7, the desire to win every battle. Not every fight is worth it. Not every insult deserves a clap back. And not every battle needs to be won to prove you're strong. Sigma females know this better than anyone. They've mastered the art of restraint, not because they're weak, but because they've outgrown the need to be right all the time. They've realized that winning the battle often costs more than it's worth. Time, energy, peace, sanity. And for what? To impress someone who isn't even operating on the same frequency. No thanks. Sigma females don't fight to feed their ego. They don't argue to hear themselves talk. They don't waste breath trying to change minds that are already made up. Instead, they choose silence not out of fear, but out of power. Sometimes they let others believe they've won. Let them feel smart, superior, or victorious. Let them brag. Let them talk. Because Sigma females are playing a much longer game. One where peace, clarity, and self-control are the real trophies. Picture this. Someone tries to bait her into drama, throws subtle jabs, talks behind her back, but instead of reacting, she stays calm. She doesn't defend, doesn't explain. She simply exits the room mentally, emotionally, sometimes physically. And just like that, she wins without lifting a finger. That's real power. Knowing when to step back, when to go quiet, when to let the noise echo while you protect your energy. Sigma females don't need to win every battle because they've already won the war within themselves. They've silenced the urge to prove. They've made peace with being misunderstood. And they've realized that the loudest one in the room is usually the weakest. So they let others shout while they rise quietly, gracefully, completely unbothered. Because sometimes walking away isn't giving up, it's rising above. And that's a level of strength most people will never understand. Number 8, the desire to keep the peace at their own expense. Most people are taught early on to be peacemakers. Don't rock the boat. Don't speak up. Don't make anyone uncomfortable. So they grow up swallowing their voice just to keep things calm. But Sigma females have reached a point where they refuse to keep sacrificing themselves just to avoid conflict. They don't confuse silence with peace. They've seen what happens when you hold your tongue too long. The bitterness, the exhaustion, the slow decay of self. So no, they don't go quiet just to make others feel okay. If something's wrong, they'll say it. If a boundary is crossed, they'll draw a clear line. And if that honesty cracks the surface of fake harmony, so be it. Sigma females are not here to be agreeable. They're here to be true. Picture a woman at a family gathering. Someone throws a passive jab, something disrespectful dressed as a joke. Everyone laughs nervously. Most would ignore it just to keep the mood light. Not her. She calmly calls it out, not with anger, but with clarity. The room goes quiet. Tension rises. But you know what? That moment needed to happen. That silence is real. That silence says, this stops here. Sigma females understand that real peace only comes after truth, not before it. And if keeping the peace requires betraying themselves, it's not peace. It's quiet suffering. They're not loud for attention. They speak because they respect themselves. They don't need to win the argument. But they won't sit in a room pretending nothing happened, pretending everything's fine while their soul screams on the inside. Let the room break. Let the truth sting. Let people feel uncomfortable. Sigma females have learned that discomfort is temporary, but self-abandonment leaves scars. So now they choose truth every time, even if it costs them the room. Because peace that silences you is just a prettier version of control, and they were never built for that. Number 9, the desire for validation from weak men. A lot of women waste years trying to prove they're worthy to men who can barely hold a conversation, let alone handle a real woman. But Sigma females let that go. They're not waiting for weak men to clap for them. They don't shrink just to feel chosen. And they definitely don't play therapist to bruised egos dressed up as masculinity. They've learned that some men are not intimidated by their attitude. They're intimidated by their peace, by their boundaries, by the fact that she's not desperate to be needed. And instead of dimming their light to make those men feel secure, Sigma females flip the script. They say, if he's scared of my strength, let him leave. They don't stick around hoping a man will eventually see their value. They know their value. And if he can't meet them where they are, they don't beg. They move on. Picture a woman with ambition, clarity, emotional depth. She meets a man who's intrigued at first until he realizes he can't control her, impress her with surface talk, or make her compete for attention. Suddenly, he pulls back, calls her too much. That's when the Sigma energy kicks in. She doesn't chase. She doesn't explain. She lets the door close. Sigma females know that needing validation from a man who hasn't even validated himself is a losing game. They're not attracted to potential dressed in insecurity. They're attracted to presence, honesty, and depth. And if that's not on the table, they'd rather sit alone. They don't chase weak men because weak men are terrified of what they represent. A woman who won't be controlled, manipulated, or impressed by surface-level nonsense. So they walk. And when they do, they don't look back. Because real power isn't needing to be seen. It's knowing who you are even when nobody claps. Number 10, the desire to fit into a role. From the moment she could walk, the world tried to hand her a script. Be the good daughter. Be polite. Be soft, agreeable, obedient. Later, it became the ideal wife, the perfect girlfriend, the strong but never too strong woman who knows when to speak and when to stay quiet. But Sigma females threw those scripts into the fire. They've learned that roles are not identities. Roles are cages dressed up as compliments. Once you let someone define you, they'll start controlling you. And if you dare step outside that image, suddenly you're the problem. Sigma females don't play that game. They're not here to fit into boxes designed to make others feel comfortable. They'd rather be misunderstood than molded, rather be questioned than controlled. Imagine a woman who's told she'd make a perfect wife because she cooks, cleans, and stays quiet. Everyone claps for her until she says she's not interested in playing support to someone else's story. Suddenly, the praise turns into criticism. You've changed. No, she woke up. Sigma females would rather be wild and unknown than perfectly packaged and trapped. They refuse to live a life shaped by other people's expectations. They ask hard questions. They break traditions when those traditions break them. And they never apologize for walking away from roles that suffocate their soul. They don't owe anyone a version of themselves that keeps others comfortable. They're not here to play parts. They're here to live fully, loudly, authentically. And that's why they're dangerous, because they can't be pinned down. You can't guilt them into staying in a role that drains them. You can't shame them into silence. They'll rewrite their own story every time. They don't just burn the script. They never look back at the ashes, because being undefined isn't scary to a Sigma female. It's freedom. Number 11, the desire to be liked. Let's be real. Most people spend their lives chasing approval. They shape their opinions, their personality, even their values just to be accepted, just to hear, "You're nice," or "We like you." But Sigma females have walked away from that game. They've learned that being liked by everyone often means you've betrayed yourself somewhere along the way. They've detoxed from the need to please. It wasn't easy. It took some lonely nights and brutal self-honesty. But they've reached a point where being respected for their truth matters more than being liked for playing a part. Because let's be honest, people-pleasing is a slow kind of self-eraser. You keep shaving off pieces of yourself to fit into rooms you were never meant to be in. And Sigma females, they've had enough of that. They're not rude. They're just honest. They're not difficult. They're direct. And if that makes people uncomfortable, so be it. They'd rather someone walk away because of who they really are than stay because of a watered-down version. Picture a woman in a group where everyone agrees just to keep things cool. But she sees the flaw in the plan. She sees through the fake smiles, and instead of nodding along, she speaks up calmly, clearly, and just like that, the energy shifts. Some pull away, but a few look at her differently, with respect. That's the difference. Sigma females aren't here to be everyone's favorite. They're not chasing applause. They're building truth. And truth doesn't always make you popular, but it makes you powerful. When you stop needing to be liked, you start living honestly. You find out who's real. You stop performing. You breathe deeper. And that's what makes Sigma females unforgettable. They didn't come to be liked. They came to be real. And that's something very few people have the courage to do. Number 12, the desire to impress. We live in a world obsessed with performance. Flashy resumes, carefully crafted captions, everyone trying to prove how busy, successful, or important they are. But Sigma females don't need the stage. They don't chase applause. They've walked away from the pressure to impress because they know what's real doesn't need a spotlight. They don't wear ambition like jewelry. They don't talk about how hard they're working. They just work. They don't waste time convincing anyone of their value because they already know most people couldn't recognize it even if it was gift wrapped. Sigma females understand that when you're truly focused, you don't have the energy to perform. You're too busy building, too deep in the process to care who's watching. And when the results speak, they speak loud and they do it without needing a microphone. Picture a woman who's working on herself, her goals, her peace. She's not posting every move. She's not trying to make her life look like a movie. People start wondering where she went, why she's quiet, what she's up to. That's the point. The mystery isn't for attention. It's a natural byproduct of deep focus. And when her results finally show, there's no announcement, no dramatic reveal. Just quiet excellence that can't be denied. Sigma females don't care if you're impressed. They care if they're aligned. They care if they're at peace. They care if what they're doing feeds their soul, not their image. because the desire to impress is just insecurity dressed up in hustle. And they've already stripped that layer off. They let their life speak for them. And if you don't get it, that's fine. Their success doesn't need your applause. It just needs to exist. And trust me, it does, quietly, powerfully, without permission. In final words, freedom doesn't always look like gaining more. Sometimes it looks like letting go of what was never yours to begin with. Sigma females don't rise because they chase more. They rise because they've learned to walk away from the things most people cling to. The desires that seem harmless on the surface but quietly steal your power. The need to be liked, understood, chosen, praised, needed. The pressure to be perfect, to fix what's broken, to make others comfortable at the cost of your own peace. While others live for validation, they live for clarity. While others shape themselves to fit in, they peel back the layers until all that's left is truth. It's not easy. It takes strength to be this self-aware. It takes guts to say, no, I won't play that role. I won't sacrifice my soul for a place at a table that was never built for me. Sigma females don't walk away because they're detached. They walk away because they know their worth. They know the difference between being seen and being respected, between being needed and being valued. And they don't fear losing people. They fear losing themselves. So, if you've ever felt like you see through the noise, like you're allergic to pretending, like you'd rather be alone in truth than surrounded by illusion, you're not broken. You're becoming. And that quiet strength inside you, that refusal to settle for shallow, that is Sigma energy. This path isn't for everyone. It's not loud. It's not glamorous, but it is real. It is raw, and it is powerful beyond words. So keep walking. Keep choosing peace over performance. Keep letting go of what no longer serves you. Because every time you walk away from what drains you, you make more room for what builds you. And that is where your power lives. Stay true to yourself. To all the spicy ladies, make life beautiful. Thank you for watching, and God bless.